I always believed family was something permanent. Growing up, my parents used to say that no matter what happened in life, family would always stand together. Those words stayed with me for years. I carried them through college, through the long nights of building my career, and through every sacrifice I made to make sure the people I loved never struggled. As the oldest child, responsibility fell naturally on my shoulders. When my parents had financial problems, I stepped in. When my younger sister Emma needed help paying for college, I didn't hesitate. When the house needed repairs and my parents couldn't afford it, I transferred the money without even mentioning it. I never kept score. To me, that was simply what family did. So when Emma got engaged, I was genuinely happy for her. She had always dreamed about a big romantic wedding, the kind with flowers everywhere and music filling the air. I remember the excitement in her voice when she first told me about her fiancé, Mark. She talked about the future like it was a beautiful movie just beginning. Naturally, I assumed I would be part of it. Weeks passed after the engagement announcement. I kept checking my phone, expecting a call from my parents or a message from Emma about wedding plans. But nothing came. At first, I thought maybe they were still figuring things out. Weddings took time to plan, after all. I told myself I was overthinking it. Then one evening, everything changed. I was scrolling through social media after work when a photo appeared on my screen. Emma, standing in a white wedding dress, her hair styled perfectly, flowers in her hands, smiling brightly beside Mark. Behind them stood our parents, dressed elegantly, looking proud and happy. The caption read, "The happiest day of my life." My heart froze. I stared at the picture, waiting for my brain to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. Wedding photos. Dozens of them, guests laughing, people dancing, relatives celebrating. It wasn't a small ceremony. It was a full wedding, a wedding that had already happened, and somehow, I hadn't known anything about it. My hands began to shake as I scrolled through the pictures again and again, searching for some explanation. Maybe the photos were from an engagement party. Maybe it was just a rehearsal, but deep down, I already knew the truth. I wasn't there. I hadn't been invited. My own sister had gotten married, surrounded by family, friends, and relatives, and I had been completely erased from the day. The realization felt unreal, like a strange dream I couldn't wake up from. After a few minutes, I grabbed my phone and dialed my mother. It rang several times before she answered. "Hello." My voice came out quieter than I expected. "Mom, why wasn't I invited to Emma's wedding?" After my call with my mother ended, I sat in silence for a long time, staring at the wall as if the answer might somehow appear there. But nothing made sense. My sister had gotten married, my entire family had gathered to celebrate, and somehow I had been the only one left out. I tried to convince myself there had been some misunderstanding. Maybe Emma didn't know I hadn't been invited. Maybe my parents had made the decision without telling her. I needed to hear the truth from her. The next morning, I called Emma. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Hey," she said cheerfully. "It's been a while." Her normal tone made my stomach twist. "Yeah, it has," I replied. Then I took a breath. "Emma, I saw the wedding photos." There was a brief pause. "Oh, those. Why wasn't I invited?" For a few seconds, she didn't say anything. I could hear faint background noise on her end, like she had stepped away from someone to take the call. "Well," she finally said, her voice suddenly less confident, "it was just a small ceremony." I almost laughed. "Emma, there were hundreds of people in those photos." Another silence followed. Then she sighed. "Look, it wasn't really my decision." "What does that mean?" "Mark's family had certain expectations," she said carefully. "They're very traditional." I frowned, trying to understand what that had to do with me. And they wanted everything to be perfect." Her answer felt strange, like she was walking around something she didn't want to say directly. "Emma," I said slowly, "what does that have to do with me being there?" More silence. Then she spoke again, this time quietly. "They thought you might make things awkward." The words felt like a punch to the chest. "Awkward," I repeated. "You know what I mean," she said quickly. "You're very outspoken, and Mark's parents are really particular about their image. We didn't want any tension during the wedding." I struggled to process what she was saying. So you decided the best solution was to not invite your own brother. It wasn't like that, she insisted. It was just easier. Easier. That word echoed in my head. For years, I had helped this family whenever they needed me. I had supported them through every problem, every financial emergency, every difficult moment. And when it came to the most important celebration of Emma's life, I had been excluded because it was easier. Emma, I said quietly, do you remember who paid your last year of college tuition? She didn't answer. Do you remember who helped Mom and Dad when they almost lost the house? The silence on the phone grew heavier. Finally, she said something that changed everything. Well, that's what family does. I slowly looked at my computer screen, where my banking app was still open from the night before. Monthly transfers, mortgage payments, utility bills, support, family, apparently, only mattered when the money was flowing one direction. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. That night, I sat at my desk staring at my banking app. For years, I had never really thought about the numbers. Sending money to my parents had become a routine part of my life, something automatic, like paying rent or buying groceries. Every month, the same transfers went out: mortgage payment, utility bills, insurance, occasional emergency help. And of course, the extra money my sister sometimes needed. I scrolled through the transaction history slowly. It was strange seeing it all lined up like that. Thousands of dollars, month after month, quietly leaving my account. I had never asked for anything in return. Not gratitude, not recognition, just basic respect. And somehow, that had been too much to expect. My phone buzzed with another notification from social media. Someone had tagged me in a comment under Emma's wedding photos. I opened it. A distant cousin had written, "Too bad your brother couldn't make it." Emma had replied with a laughing emoji and a simple response, "He's always busy." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Always busy. That was the excuse they had decided to give the world. Not that they didn't invite me. Not that they had excluded me from the wedding. Just that I was too busy. I felt something inside me go cold. Without thinking any further, I opened the list of scheduled payments. One by one, I began canceling them. Mortgage transfer, canceled. Utility support, canceled. Insurance payment, canceled. Each click felt strangely calm, almost peaceful. It wasn't done out of anger. It was done out of clarity. If I wasn't considered part of the family when it mattered most, then my role as their financial safety net no longer made sense. I closed the app and leaned back in my chair. For the first time in years, I felt like a weight had lifted from my shoulders. 3 weeks passed before anyone noticed. The call came on a Tuesday evening. My father's name appeared on my phone. I answered calmly. "Hello. Did something happen with your bank account?" he asked immediately. His voice sounded tense. "What do you mean, the mortgage payment didn't go through this month?" I paused for a moment before answering. "Oh," I said simply, "I stopped paying it." There was a long silence on the other end. "You what?" I stopped the transfers. His voice quickly turned frustrated. "You can't just stop like that. We rely on that money." I leaned back in my chair, remembering the wedding photos, the smiling faces, the celebration I had never been allowed to attend. "Funny," I said quietly. "What, you didn't seem to rely on me when Emma got married?" Another silence filled the line. Then my father tried to sound defensive. "That's completely different. No," I replied calmly. "It really isn't." The phone call with my father ended badly. After I told him I had stopped the payments, the conversation quickly turned into shouting. My parents couldn't understand why I would suddenly abandon them. That word stuck with me. Abandon. It was strange hearing them say it, considering they had managed to celebrate my sister's entire wedding without even telling me it was happening. But to them, the real problem wasn't the wedding. The real problem was the money. Within a few hours, my phone started buzzing nonstop. My mother called 3 times. My sister sent several messages. Even a few relatives I barely spoke to suddenly felt the need to contact me. The messages all carried the same tone. "You're being dramatic. It was just a misunderstanding. Family shouldn't fight over small things." Small things, apparently. Being erased from one of the most important family events of the decade counted as something small. I didn't argue with them. I didn't explain myself. For years, I had always been the one trying to keep the peace. The one solving problems, sending help, fixing things quietly in the background. But this time, I simply stayed silent. A week later, my mother finally managed to reach me again. Her voice sounded different this time, less angry, more anxious. "We're having trouble covering the mortgage," she said. I didn't respond immediately. She continued, her tone growing more desperate. "You know, your father's retirement money is tied up right now. We really need your help until things settle down." It was the first time anyone in the family had admitted they needed me. But even then, there was still no apology, no acknowledgement of what they had done, just another request for money. "I took a slow breath, Mom," I said calmly. "Why wasn't I invited to Emma's wedding?" She sighed heavily. "We already talked about that." "No," I replied, "you avoided it." The line stayed quiet for several seconds. Finally, she spoke again. "Emma's husband comes from a very wealthy family," she said. "We didn't want anything to go wrong that day. And I would have made something go wrong." You can be unpredictable. That was the closest thing to the truth I was ever going to get. They hadn't forgotten me. They had simply decided that my presence wasn't worth the risk. I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see me. "Well," I said quietly, "now you don't have to worry about that anymore." "What does that mean?" she asked nervously. "It means you don't have to worry about me being involved in family events. Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "We just need you to restart the payments." I stared out the window, watching the quiet street below my apartment. For the first time in years, the silence in my life felt peaceful. "No," I said calmly. Then I ended the call. After that day, the messages slowly stopped, the phone calls became less frequent, and eventually, something unexpected happened. Silence, but this time, it wasn't painful, it was freeing.